When I was a little girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, I remember going to a friend's house to play. When I got to her house, she came walking around the side of her house with a mason jar full of beautiful fresh cut roses. She wanted to paint them. I wasn't interested in painting them. I was more interested in these beautiful flowers. I wanted to smell them. I wanted to look at them. I wanted to pick some more. From that day, it was my dream to have my own rose garden when I grew up. Well, I'm grown up now, and I've started my own beautiful rose garden. At first it was intimidating, planting and growing my own rose garden, but as long as we remember 4 basic elements to rose gardening, you can't miss. First thing is nutrition. Second, sunlight. Third, avoiding disease. And fourth, pruning. So let's talk about the first one, nutrition. Roses are a very hungry plant. They will soak up all the nutrients out of the soil. So it's important that we replenish those nutrients into the soil. Using something like a rose food, you just take about 1/4 of a cup of this and sprinkle it 6 to 8 inches around the base of your rose bush every 6 to 8 weeks. So about every 1.5 to 2 months, from the beginning of spring to the beginning of fall. That will keep the nutrients in the soil and keep your roses nice and healthy. Roses also need some water. When you first plant your roses, make sure that they're getting about a gallon of water a day for the first couple of weeks. That will allow the roots to push deep into the soil and establish that plant. Once you have established roots, you only need to water about 3 to 4 times a week. The second thing is sunlight. These beautiful plants need a lot of sun. They don't do well in the shade. So plant your roses in a place that gets about 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day, direct sunlight. They love the sun. The third thing is avoiding disease. So the main disease that we see in roses are infestation and mold. Infestation are bugs like mites or aphids. One thing you can do to prevent those is use a little bit of peppermint oil. It's safe, inexpensive. You put a few drops of peppermint oil in a spray bottle of water and spritz your roses often. Those aphids and mites don't like the smell of peppermint oil, so it should be enough to deter them from your rose plants. If you do find that you have mites and need to kill them, you can use some safe insecticidal soap, such as Dawn dish soap with a little bit of water, or horticultural oil. One that is effective and inexpensive is canola oil. Spray those on your roses and that should be enough to kill the mites or the aphids. The second disease we worry about is mold. That's one of the reasons you want to plant your roses in the sun. They have a tendency to grow mold. So if for some reason you live in a really rainy place, make sure they're planted in the sun so that they can dry out. If you do have to use a sprinkler to water the roses and water gets on the foliage and on the blossoms, make sure that you're watering in the morning so they have the rest of the day to dry out. They need water, but not a lot on the bush itself. Keep the water down on the ground level, so a soaker hose is really effective for avoiding mold. The fourth thing is pruning. Now this can be a little bit intimidating. You spend all this time and work making a beautiful rose bush and then you have to cut it. But it's what's best for the plant. So early in the spring, after the last frost of the springtime, you need to go to your rose bushes and you need to trim off any dead canes all the way down to the stalk. And you'll know they're dead because they'll turn kind of a brown-yellow color. So clip those ones off, clean them out. Then with the remaining stalks, they need to be trimmed to half their length. So if you have a 3-foot stalk, trim it down to 1.5 feet. And you have the ability to trim in a way that you can design the shape of your bush. Throughout the summer or the growing season, you need to make sure that you deadhead. This is like a mini pruning. When a rose blossoms and blooms, they will look so beautiful for a few days. But as they get older, the petals will start to dry up and kind of crinkle. That's when it's time to clip those off and throw them out so more of the nutrients and the energy can be put into new buds and new blossoms. So as long as we remember these 4 things, nutrients, sunlight, avoiding disease, and pruning, you will be able to create the most beautiful rose garden and maybe inspire your neighbors who come over to plant a garden of their own.